this conference and for NCL this year is absolute victory. I personally think he could have chosen to theme it victory, but he said absolute victory. Because not all victory is the same. Absolute means total or complete. So there is victory that is not total. There is victory that is not complete. Absolute means not subject to any limitations, limited. But when we talk about absolute victory, we talk about absolute victory, we are talking of victory that is not limited. Victory is simply having success, winning, triumph, or achievement. So when someone is successful, they are victorious. When someone is winning, they are victorious. When somebody has triumphed, we say they have obtained victory. When someone achieves something, we say they have also become victorious. Absolute victory means victory which is free from defect or error. So there are times we have victory, but the victory is erroneous. Unokwanisa kukunda, but kukunda kwako kwakaremara. Explain or to share understanding of victory. The ending of victory. There are some times we celebrate victory, and yet it is not the totality of victory. We have seen this in the Word of God, where a lot of people celebrated what they thought was victory, but it was not the victory. Hannah celebrated what we thought was victory when she gave birth to Samuel. But Samuel was not the absolute victory. Because when God gave Hannah Samuel, Hannah thought she is celebrating victory over barrenness. But God was not looking at victory over barrenness. God was looking at a prophet. God was looking at a priest. God was looking at a judge of Israel. So you can celebrate something because you have gone through a series or a season of suffering, and then when you celebrate what you think is the victory, yet it is not the victory. Tinokwanisa kufarira mwana, yet mwara havasi kuti victory mwana. It is the achievement, what the child is going to bring to the world. So when we lack this understanding that it is not Samuel that we are, the birth of Samuel that we are supposed to celebrate, we don't have the understanding of the type of victory that God has handed unto us. So when you celebrate having a company, when you celebrate having a breakthrough, are you having the understanding of what really you are celebrating? Or you are just celebrating kunyadzis kwako kuti kwapera, and you fail to maintain the Samuel after his birth? Because at least everyone knows I can give birth. But when God gave you Samuel, was he looking at your barrenness, or he was looking at the need that Israel is going to have in the future? So failing to take Samuel to Eli, you are failing to understand what victory is. Because it is not you in you keeping Samuel for yourself, so that everyone sees that now the barren has a child. But when you are able to understand that the coming of Samuel has nothing to do with the removal of my shame, you are then able to take Samuel to a place where Samuel can be nurtured and become the first priest who is not in the lineage of the Levitical order. So, when you celebrate what you are celebrating as victory, is it the victory? Or it's the beginning of a great victory that is coming? So when you celebrate having your first job or the promotion, is it the salary that you are supposed to celebrate as your victory? Or it is what you are supposed to be doing when you are where you are? Are we supposed to celebrate Esther becoming a queen in a kingdom such as that? Or we are supposed to celebrate Esther when she begins to save Israel, when Haman has plotted their downfall? Saka tinokwanisa kufarira kuti wedu queen. Tokutadza kuziva kuti it's not about her being a queen today. It's about the victory that is in the future that God has planned for Esther. So you have to understand your victory. Okay, so let me build my story in this place. Second Kings chapter number 2, and let's read from verse number 7. We read verse number 1, then we go to verse number 6, 7, and verse number 8.
2 Kings chapter 7 from verse 1.
Yes.
Then Elisha said, "Hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria."
Verse number 6.
Verse number 6. For the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, "Lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the king of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us." Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents and their horses and their asses, even the camp as it was, and fled for their life.
All right, so just hold on. We understand from the background of the scripture that Elisha, the prophet, prophesied and said, by this time tomorrow shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria. And it so happened that there was a causation by God for the Syrian army to hear certain sounds. I want you to understand what is interesting is that the sound and the noise they heard was the noise of what? Chariots. And the noise of what? Horses. Even the noise of great host. But what is interesting about this noise is on verse number 7. They arose. Okay, come, Pastor, yes.
Verse 7. Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents and their horses.
Okay. There was noise, but the noise did not disturb their horses. But they heard the noise of chariots and the noise of horses. Sorry, let me speak in Shona. Madonga akatanga kuchema mabhiza akaita noise. Mamwe acho anoita noise ototiza. But when the chariots made noise in the ears of the armies of the Syrians, their chariots, their horses did not hear that. I wonder what type of noise can be heard only in the ears of human beings and not in their horses. And what's interesting is when they heard the noise, they saw it was faster to run on foot. Read the scripture.
Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents and their horses.
You want the horse because it is faster, but it is not true. Horses are not always fast. Ask the Syrians. They saw it is not going to be easy to use our horses. We rather use the Adam because we can't wait to get onto our horses. Let's read verse number 8, then I'll preach from there.
Verse 8. And when these lepers came to the uttermost parts of the camp, they went into one tent and did eat and drink, and carried thence silver and gold and raiment, and went and hid it, and came again and entered into another tent, and carried thence also, and went and hid it.
Okay, so we now understand that Elijah, when he prophesied, he spoke of fine flour and he spoke of barley. But when the lepers are approaching the tent, they ate first and they were full. Secondly, they begin to carry gold and silver. But when the prophetic declaration was made, he didn't say you are going to pick silver and gold. It spoke of what? Fine flour and barley. And when these guys are getting into the tent, they feed themselves as lepers, but interestingly, they are carrying gold, silver, and fine raiment. But when the declaration was made, by this time tomorrow, barley and flour will be sold by the gates of Samaria. I want you to understand this because this is what I want to speak about. The guy that died at the gate, akafira pa pressure ye flour ne barley, ana kufira pa pressure ye gorite. So Samaria was celebrating victory, ye flour. Yet the declaration did not bring fine flour only. It brought gold and silver. So when you lack understanding of your victory, you celebrate flour. You celebrate the car. You celebrate the 100,000. Yet there was gold, silver, and fine raiment. A testimony was given. We want to thank God. What was declared by the men of God. We are enjoying the fine flour. We are enjoying the barley. And what he said exactly has come to pass. The very man who doubted our father has died. People of God, our father is a true prophet. Are we forgetting that there is something greater than the victory you are celebrating? So some are seeing the God of flour, some are seeing the God of barley, some are seeing the God of gold, some are seeing the God of silver. Remember when this was pronounced, when the prophetic word was released, the lepers were not present. But the ones who were present, they had of the barley and flour. And this God was not the God that we mind. These were bars of God. Because the four of them, okay, read again. I'll preach on this one now. Okay.
Verse 7. Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight.
They fled in the twilight.
And left their tents.
They left the tents.
And their horses.
And their horses.
And their asses.
And their asses.
Even the camp as it was. And fled for their life.
Verse number 8.
And when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp,
how could they have understanding when the declaration was made they were not present? How could you miss the gold and the silver and celebrate flour and barley? Yet the people who were not present are the ones who are going to carry the gold, who are the ones who are going to carry the silver and the fine raiment. So they had a different understanding altogether. So when a declaration is made, it depends how you hear it. Under the same atmosphere, the same environment, the same prophet, but what you receive is determined by your understanding of your victory.
And when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent and did eat and drink, and carried thence silver and gold.
They carried for the first time silver and gold.
And raiment.
And raiment.
And went and hid it.
They went and hid for the first time. Ladies and gentlemen, these guys were 4 men, not 4 boys. So if any man, if you see God, Pastor Tsanyao, you are not going to carry 2 kgs. Understand your background. A real man is going to carry a minimum of 20 kgs. So each man, according to me, carried 20 kgs of gold for the first time. I can now carry it. Let's go.
And came again.
They came again.
And entered into another tent.
And entered into another tent. They are not worried about the measure of fine flour and the 2 measures of barley. They are concerned about the gold that they are coming across. They are not celebrating flour. We are here, ladies and gentlemen, not to celebrate the gold of flour and the gold of barley. These are not what we are here for. We are here for something better. We are here for something great. You have to understand what your victory is carrying. Your victory is not carrying merely barley. Your victory is not carrying merely fine flour. It is carrying something that is so significant, something that is so huge, something that is so big. They carried for the first time their loot, 20 kgs each of gold, silver, and fine raiment. What happened on the second lot?
And entered into another tent.
They entered into another tent.
And carried thence also.
And carried thence also.
and went and hid it.
And went also the same what they carried, the gold, the silver, and the fine raiment, and went and hid it. So we testify differently. Because what we are looking for in our victory is not the same. From this conference, if he anoints me today, if I just get $50, I'll be fine. Somebody is saying, I'm looking for bars of gold. How do you see and perceive your victory? Determines what you are going to carry from the tens. They did not focus on the barley and flour. They focused on weightier matters. A hungry man should never negotiate, because they negotiate from their empty stomachs. So they fed themselves first. Then they said, no, we are not here for barley. We are not here for gold, for fine flour. If we get this gold and this silver and this fine raiment, we can trade and get flour. Because if I carry 50 kgs of flour and barley and not carry 50 kgs of gold, I've lost it in life. But chiprofita chakataurwa, barley and flour will be sold by the gates of Samaria. But what are you carrying? Barley and flour. But did the prophetic produce barley and flour? No, it produced greater than barley and flour. Hey, it's not only about you. It's greater than what you think. Take it easy. So, we are supposed to be cognizant of what our victory is carrying. Because we can celebrate what is not the absolute victory. So, Zacharias and Elizabeth can celebrate their shame being taken away from them. We have been barren for so long. And we understand when Gabriel says, I am Gabriel. I am coming from God himself. You will receive something and you will become pregnant. And you have a son and you name him John. So when they give birth to John, there is celebration. Finally, our shame has been rolled away from us. But is that all you are supposed to celebrate? Is that the victory? You receiving John as a son? No. What went you out to see? A reed shaken by the wind? No. Among those born of a woman, none is greater than John. So receiving John as a child is not the victory. But what John is going to do is the victory. Because John is the one who is going to usher Christ, who is the savior of the world. So if we are not going to protect John and safeguard John and make sure John is protected, we are going to lose everything, because the victory is not in us receiving John as a miracle, but the victory is in us keeping John until the time Jesus comes and he says, "This is the Lamb of God," and he baptizes him. And when there is baptizing, then the voice is heard from heaven and is saying, "This is my beloved son." So the receiving of John is not the victory, but the raising of John and the protection of John so that he fulfills his mandate and his purpose is the victory that we must celebrate. Okay, take it easy. In the wives, the Bible is clear about Hannah. Hannah was barren. And the Bible is open to say, because God had shut her womb. Because there are similarities between John and Samuel. They were both born because there was a season of barrenness from their mother. But what is interesting also about these guys is both of them could not be birthed. Not because there was a devil. Their devil was God. Why? Because God had shut the womb of Hannah. Why could not Hannah give birth earlier? Because Samuel was supposed to succeed Eli. So as long as Eli is young, Samuel cannot be birthed. So Hannah should pray, but she must have an understanding. Because as long as I pray, as long as Eli is still young, it is not possible, because Samuel can be birthed today and die before he succeeds. Similarly, John, because he was supposed to be the voice and preparing the way. So John was supposed to be born just before Jesus. So if Jesus was going to delay with 100 years, John was not supposed to be born. So when you understand what you are supposed to be carrying, you struggle with understanding. So imwe Maria urufana kupiwa ndekuti tizovaka zicheche redu rakakura kutauna. Saka musanyanya kuitira pressure, because pauri kuiwana haisi yako ndeyedu. So Samuel cannot be born today until Eli has advanced in age. And you can't give birth to Samuel and keep Samuel for yourself, because Samuel is the successor of Eli. So he must be raised by Eli. So chero uchitomuda Samuel, you can't have Samuel, because Samuel is not your victory, it's the national victory. You can't personalize something that is public. And visions were rare in the days of what? Of Samuel. John comes after 400 years of what? Of silence. Between Malachi and Matthew and Mark and Luke. There was no voice of God. And he says, I am the voice. So they are both coming at a time. But as they are coming at such a time, are we supposed to celebrate their birth, or we're supposed to celebrate their purpose? We can focus on the wrong thing and ignore the main thing. Samuel is raised where? Under Eli. What about the environment? Whose sons of Eli are? Hophni and Phinehas, two rascals, the sons of Belial, yet are the sons of Eli. But what happens to Samuel? He is not affected by his environment. He did not even question Eli one of the days. Why have you failed to raise your sons? He behaved well, was nurtured well by Eli. Because whatever our father speaks to us, it depends which son is willing to be obedient. We cannot measure the success of Eli by Hophni, and we have to look at Samuel. So, hauna utara kuti hey kune vamwana vari kuita zvakaipa muNC atingana basa navo vari kuita zvakanaka vape. Where there is a Hophni and Phinehas, there is always a Samuel. The same man of God, the same words, the same teaching is raising a priest, is raising a prophet, is raising a judge. Others are busy doing nonsense. He did not focus on the behavior of Hophni and Phinehas. Why are you focusing on the wrong things? Are you here for Hophni and Phinehas? If you are here for Eli, fix your eyes unto Eli. Saka iwo kabudira chechi Hophni and Phinehas, uriwe successor, unonodzidziswa nani kuva mupriest. Yet there is only one why mukwekwe. To whom shall we go? I will stick with my Eli. I'm not worried about Hophni and Phinehas. And the same God is speaking to Samuel. After being spoken once and twice and thrice, he still behaved himself well under the same man of God. You can go on a vision. You are starting your own ministry. Okay, that's it. Let's try Matthew chapter number 11. I'm about to conclude. Matthew chapter number 11, and let's read verse number 1.
Matthew chapter 11, verse 1. And it came to pass, when Jesus had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. Now when John had heard in prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples and said unto him, Art thou he that he should come, or do we look for another? Jesus answered and said unto them, Go and shew John again those things which ye do hear and see.
Okay, so it is clear when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ. So the first thing is John heard in prison what Christ was doing, because he was now in prison. Remember, John is born 6 months earlier than Jesus. So John is the one who was announcing that someone great is coming. And now John is now in prison. And John is concerned about his testimony about Jesus. Even though he is in, there are people who lose their focus when they are going through difficult times. John understands his purpose even when he was in prison. I know that we always say the reason why John asked if Jesus was the one to come, he wanted to be liberated from the prison. But I want you to understand why John is asking. John is asking, come on, let's celebrate. Now, John is asking clearly, is this the Christ who is to come, or should we wait for another? And he heard in prison what Jesus was doing. That's what he heard, what Jesus was doing. And John's challenge was, he had told people, the one who is coming after me will not baptize you with water, but with fire. So John is in prison. He is hearing what Jesus is doing. So again, he sends people and asks him if he is the one. And Jesus responded. Let's sit down. Why is John asking? Why is John asking? Why is John asking? John knew that the victory is in Jesus carrying out his what? Mandate. So he was not happy about anything unless and until, yes, that which he spoke is fulfilled. So he's not worried about his imprisonment. No, that's not his question. He wants to see what he was saying about him. Is it happening? Because it's not what I'm going through that can overshadow the victory. So he is not willing to have his victory be clouded by his circumstances. And again, Jesus, and again, he says, go and tell him again. Read that one, Pastor.
Jesus answered and said unto them, go and shew John again.
Again, it's not the first. It's not the first time. Go and tell John again. He is checking on the victory. Are we still on, regardless of where I am operating from? I stood in the wilderness one of the days. I said, he who comes after me is greater than I. He is not going to baptize you with water. He is going to baptize you with fire. So he wants to hear if ever there is a baptism of fire, because he spoke about it. Are you able to check on your assignment when you're going through difficult times? Do you carry the personality of a victor? When overshadowed by certain things, again he asked, are you the one or you are not? It's not that he was only looking for the results. He wanted to check if what he spoke before to the people is what is happening. So the victory is not in his birth. Neither can the victory be stopped by his imprisonment. He still wants to check. Are you able to check? And not concentrate on your health, because this person knows his mandate. Matthew chapter number 2 and verse number 17.
Matthew chapter 2 verse 17. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not.
So, a voice is heard in Ramah, Rachel weeping and mourning, and she's refusing to be comforted. But what had happened is so clear. Rachel had how many sons? 2 sons. Joseph and Benjamin. But when Herod had pronounced that every son 2 years and under should be killed, it was specifically and more so centered in Jerusalem and Bethlehem. Because that's what he had heard. the king is supposed to be birthed there. He's supposed to be born there. But obvious, it was to the entire kingdom and to the entire region. But the voice that is heard is not that of Leah, who had more children. It is the voice of Rachel. Why is the voice of Rachel being heard? When Leah received her first child, she says, now my husband will love me, according to Genesis chapter 29. She was concerned about a breakthrough of being loved by the husband. Her victory was, I will be loved. She did not focus on the greater picture. And a woman who had 2 sons begins to make intercession and prayer for the defense of the victory that she had received in the future. She begins to pray against the destruction of her kids. When you don't understand your victory, you focus on the minor things. She focused on being loved by the husband, but she did not put intercessory prayer to protect what she had received. So the victory was not in her being loved by the husband, but it was supposed to be in her protecting what she had received. When you don't understand your victory, you focus on the little things and not focus on the major things. And Rachel is busy focusing on defending her future generation. She says, my children are no more. And she begins to make intercessory prayer. And she is comforted. She refused to be comforted. She understands her mandate. And ignore the greater things that you are supposed to celebrate and you are supposed to keep and you are supposed to defend. Victory is not in Abraham having Isaac, but in him becoming a great nation and his seed possessing the gates of his enemies. Yes, I've received my Isaac, but is that the victory that I am looking for? Is that the victory that God is giving me? No, the victory is not that. The victory is in the seed of Abraham possessing the gates of his enemies. Jacob's absolute victory is not in getting the blessing of his father Isaac, but in him utilizing the blessing. We will be receiving a blessing, but the victory is not in receiving the blessing. It is in how you are going to utilize the blessing. So you can major on the minor and ignore the greater part of the victory. The victory is not in Jacob receiving a blessing or a miracle of having the striped cattle multiplying, but in him able to fulfill the promise. He spoke to God and said, I will give you a 10th when you bless me. So sometimes the victory is in not you getting the tender, it is in you fulfilling what you had promised God. I will give this to you when you bless me. So the victory is not in receiving Samuel, is in you fulfilling, handing over the Samuel to Eli, because it's not in what you are looking at, it's in what God is looking at. The victory is not in Joseph interpreting dreams, but it is in Joseph supplying life to his brothers. So when you are promoted, don't celebrate your promotion. Understand the purpose of the greater picture of your victory. If my victory is promoting me, but is that what God is looking at? God is looking at a time where Jacob and his sons would need to be sustained by your victory. Don't personalize your victory. It's not a small victory for yourself. It is a victory for generations. The victory is not in taking people to the promised land. Because if you deliver them out of Egypt and dump them in the wilderness, what victory is there? So there are things we cannot celebrate in totality because it is not that which we are supposed to celebrate. The victory is in not Saul becoming the first king in Israel and from the house of Benjamin, but it is when Saul understands that he's supposed to destroy the Amalekites, because God said from generation to generation Amalek is supposed to be fought. So there are things you have to understand. Don't celebrate your kingship unless you understand your assignment. The victory is not in Daniel becoming the governor only and also surviving the lion's den experience, but in him praying period was over. So, in conclusion, we have read the scripture in the book of 2 Kings that it was clear that a prophetic word was released. I want you to understand that what happens to us is we focus on the immediate need that we have and not look at the greater picture. When the prophet of God pronounced that by this time tomorrow, barley and flour will be sold by the gates of Samaria, everyone else's focus was on their stomachs and nothing else. They did not focus on the major victory of the gold that was coming and the silver that was coming. This is why you read in chapter number 5, when Gehazi followed after Naaman, the chariots, and Elisha said, is this the time for us to be receiving? Elisha said, is this the time for us to be receiving these things? These things had been brought by the Syrians. And what they got in chapter number 7 was from the Syrian camp. So Elisha ignored deliberately, as a prophet of God, to take those things from the hand of Naaman. He knew he was going to get it without any word being spoken. When you begin to understand how God works in your life, certain opportunities that you think you have missed, you would not have missed opportunities. Because your victory is certain and your victory is guaranteed. There are opportunities that has passed us along the way. And if you are a Gehazi, you would wonder and think and speak from the shoes of a man like Elisha, who is saying, is this the time of a man like Elisha, who is saying, is this the time we should receive? Because I perceive there comes a time in life where what we have seemed to have lost now is coming to us. And this time we are not going to receive it, and someone is going to say something to us. Because if people are going to contribute to your success, they will have a claim to your success. But this time, God is going to engineer it, because there is an announcement and a proclamation that barley and flour by this time tomorrow. But it's not only going to come with barley and come with flour, but there is something it is going to bring, which is gold that we did not collect that time. It is also the silver that we did not collect that time. So when we allow you, Naaman, and say, Naaman, you can take it back to Syria, we have the power and we have the strength to collect it when we need it, so that you don't put a claim allowed to pass us. But there is coming to a time in this place, there are houses we should have inherited. Coming to a time in this place, there are houses we should have inherited. There are things we should have received, but God has allowed it that we should not receive it then, because a claim was going to be made. The reason why God did not give maybe my father a house inside that my brothers would not say, you inherited our father's house, but God made it for us that this time I am going to have my own, that no one has a claim on it, because it is God doing something. Our victory is bundled with something better, with silver and with gold. We did not miss it when we said go with it. We understood what we were doing, because God was not in one tent. The Bible was clear. They came into another tent, which means all the tents had God in each every tent. But when Naaman came, he didn't have God in tents. He had God in chariots that Naaman had brought. If we had accepted Naaman's blessing, we would have missed the God. Had accepted Naaman's blessing, we would have missed the God's blessing. I am here to announce that there is victory that is better than what we think we can celebrate. Pane chiri nani chandinokwanisa kufarira kupfuura chandinofunga kuti ndakarasikirwa nacho. By this time tomorrow, some who celebrate barley and some who celebrate fine flour, but I will celebrate my blessing and my victory of God. May I declare in this place, you will receive something greater when a declaration is made. Your understanding of victory is going to cause you to receive something that is beyond your imagination, more than that which you think, more than that which you have asked for. Something that is exceeding abundance is as a result of such a declaration. Do I have a witness in this place? Atifarire flower, atifarire bal, atifarire flower, atifarire bal. Tinobuda nema tons egoride. Maonero ndo anoita sei? Zvakataurwa tisipo, asi ndisi tinonovaratidza zvakataurwa varipo. I will not allow someone who is not in this auditorium to give the first testimony. Yet when the announcement was done, I grabbed barley and flour. Then they will ask you, what do you have? The guys in Samaria bought barley and flour. The lepers did not buy anything. The same grace of the announcement. Some celebrated buying. Some celebrated collecting. Chakutengeka baba, chakutengeka. Varikuti mukutotenga, istakatotora. You are made strong in your what? I am feeble but wealthy rich. Yes. He's not worried about my status, my mindset and my mentality. I'm made strong in my weakness. No fingers, but God loaded. Stinking, but God loaded. Healthy, but broke. It's how you receive it, how you perceive it, how you celebrate your victory. Are you seeing the way we see it, or are you seeing it in your way? I want you to pray in this place. I want to receive more than that which I hear spoken of. Because the power of Moses is in his mouth. When he speaks, we receive more than what he had said. Unoitirwa zvimwe zvisina kutaurwa. Nekuti pazvataurwa pane zvakawanda zvinoita sei zvinoitika. It's how you perceive it. How you perceive your victory. Hatifarire barley, hatifarire flour. Tinoda kutofarira matsaga egoridhe neesirivha nemucheka wakanaka. We want to pray in this place.